about what I'm calling the art of the exit. We talk a lot in this industry about science and math and technology, but I will tell you when it comes to M&A, it's very much an art. And how you do it and the difference between doing it well and doing it poorly has pretty substantial consequences. And so our recommendation is that you really think about it. These are some considerations. We're doing the top 10 considerations for how to be bought, not sold. In other words, how do you end up filling one of those seats in the winner's circle panel next year? So we're going to do it in Letterman late night style. So number 10, start by following Wenda's advice. Look, we're not guys that help people with strategy and operations and business development. That's what MediaLink does, and they do it well. So think the kind of elements that she talked about, very, very good advice. Number 9, pursue strategic commercial deals over minority investments. So many of you are out there and have opportunities for larger firms potentially to take a stake. What we would suggest is a commercial deal in many instances, and obviously it can be very situational specific, but a commercial deal is amazing for a variety of reasons. One, business development deals are kind of like perfect due diligence. So for the acquirer, if you've got an interesting new product or business line, and your valuation, they may say, geez, I don't know if we can get there, it's kind of early. Well, I'll tell you what, if you work a deal with them and they can see how it ramps and see the profits and how it can benefit their business on their model with their clients, it will pave the way. And surprisingly, it's not what you think. These strategic acquirers, it is way more important to get the right acquisition, to get the right company, as opposed to optimize the price. I mean, Google has made a huge success out of this, okay? They have acquired a variety of companies being very quick and paying full prices, which in hindsight look brilliant. In hindsight, looks like they actually did very well and create a lot of value. So the reality is, it is way better to de-risk the acquisition for the large company than necessarily get the cheapest price. That, by the way, accrues to everyone's benefit. If you have a good strategic deal, they feel good and you feel good. And finally, pursuing the strategic minority thing, it can work, but it's awfully tricky, because what you don't want to do is block out other potential eventual buyers. And in particular, in the advertising world, where everyone is very competitive and hates each other at the holding company. So be very wary of selling that stake, because you want to maintain optionality. So number 8. I want to stress this one. Do not hire an investment banker to market your company. You're saying, what? I'm like, yeah, that's right. Don't do that. Companies, the better companies, are bought, not sold. And so, this notion that an auction will maximize price is a fallacy. It's not a fallacy in traditional, if you've got like a magazine or a cable company, something where valuations have been set and an auction process, competitive bidding, is your best way to optimize on the price, great. That makes sense in that industry. However, we got a lot of investment bankers that are either self-interested or lazy in the technology space, because the reality is your valuation has less to do with your business and more to do with the value in the hands of the acquirer. And launching an auction says a couple things. It says, despite the huge opportunity for our business, as evidenced by our hockey stick projections, we want to hang it up. And that is not a good message to send. So number 1, that message. So it's adverse selection. It doesn't work for you, the seller. It also doesn't work for the buyer. Okay? It's actually not how corporate development is done. Let's think about that. Consider how strategic corporate development is actually done at these large companies. I guarantee you, nobody at Google and Amazon and Facebook and eBay and Microsoft and Akamai in corporate development is sitting around saying, oh boy, I can't wait to see what an investment banker brings me today. It doesn't work that way. That's opportunistic. What do? They figure out what their strategies are that complement their existing market positions, both in terms of product development and go-to-market and client base. They determine, okay, if those are, this is our objective, here's our strategies, what capabilities do we need, product or otherwise, to fulfill on that strategy? Where do we need to be? What do we need to have? They then go through that math and figure out this is what we need. You know, do we need a DMP? Do we need a content distribution optimizer? Do we need, you know, whatever? And then they run it through a filter. Do we build it? Do we partner? Do we buy it? Because it's not obvious, and you know, there's a trade-off between time, valuation, and technology, and speed to market that impacts that partner, build, buy equation. And only then, if they conclude, no, this is our strategy, these are the capabilities we need to affect that strategy, we've decided to buy, only then do they then turn to and start identifying companies that can deliver on those capabilities to achieve that strategy to fulfill on the objective. It's very, very logical. It flows in a direction. It's very, and the better guys do this very proactively. They sit down, they map out the universe. This is why the response to this landscape headache slide has been so strong in the strategic acquirer community, because it helps them think about what they need and where to go to get it. So bear in mind, that's actually how it works. So the notion of hiring an investment bank who shows up and says, hey, you want to buy a company? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I mean, it's like a 5% solution. Number 6, remember the hot chick in high school, just say no. All right, remember the hot chick in high school? You all wanted her, and she said no to you, right? I mean, you guys are all, it's a geeky crowd. I'm going to guess with few exceptions, you all got the no. I got the no, I remember that. Michael, maybe you didn't get no, but you know, it didn't stop you from trying. But here's the thing, don't be too eager, right? So yes, we all want to achieve exits and make a lot of money and do great things with our babies. But you know, for me, when I'm negotiating a company, when we're negotiating with Google on Invite Media or with Yahoo on Dapper or with Adobe on Demdex, the last thing we were going to say was, hey, you got to beat the other guy. Because a competitor, you know, that's not going to get us the best outcome, right? To optimize the outcome, the BATNA, which is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, your best BATNA alternative is to say, no, we got a great business. We're just going to go it alone. Thank you very much. Just say no. And by the way, if they walk away on an initial no, they weren't going to buy in the first instance. So it's a good application of a filter. Again, if you're truly achieving a strategic deal, trust me, you'll get there. Number 5, understand your company's 5 key business model attributes. You know, we've given this a lot of thought, and we think there's like 5 things that people look for when they look at a business, and this applies across. I think of these 5 factors, whether it's, you know, taking on a client, investing in a business, you know, all the acquirers think of it when they're looking at companies. And the attributes get harder as you go down the list. So they are growth, obvious, profitability, pretty straightforward, scalability, adds a little bit of a more complexity layer to the business model. Here's an important one, sustainability. And then finally, the most important one, strategic value. So I'll explain the last 2. So sustainability means that you're approaching a business model that isn't a temporary phenomenon. You're not building a product, you're building a business. And that with the likely machinations and changes that take place in the industry, you can survive those. You have a sustainable business model. So harder to go as you go down the list, but bear these things in mind because buyers do. Okay, and by strategic value, I mean that you are doing something, whether it's the product or the business model, that some strategic wakes up one day and says, I need to own that company. Not I want to own it, not I could probably make a pretty good return if I bought that company. No, I need to own it. Because need is a really, really good thing. Want is nice, need is better when it comes to price. And your exit considerations will be different depending upon how you stack up on the list. Look, it's hard to get all 5, but it's interesting. You know, you need 1 through 4 to go public. You need all 5 to get acquired. Or actually, you don't need all 5 to get acquired. It's interesting. If you look at the landscape, there are many companies that have 1, 2, 3, 5. Why do they miss sustainability? Because they're building really interesting things that probably have consolidation value today because they have great value in the hands of an acquirer, but in the long run, I don't know, you're in a game with a lot of big guys, it may not necessarily be a sustainable long-term business model. Your exit considerations, if you're missing number 4, are very different because your BATNA, your alternative, is on a standalone basis, maybe not as attractive. And you got to understand that. Number 4, remember the variables for investment return. So the formula for return on investment hasn't changed, right? It's a fact. It's the numerator, what you get bought for, all over the denominator, how much money went into the company, all over 1 over 1 minus t, or t minus 1, I mean. And with time, t being time. So there are only 3 variables here, right? The money you raise, the amount of time to exit, and the price at exit. Those are the 3 variables. But understand which ones you control. You control one of them. You might be able to influence a second, and the third one you got to negotiate, but it's largely exogenous. Be aware of, market cycles and these 3 variables to optimize your exit thoughts. Number 3, understand how your funding strategy affects your exit. Right? The 2 are related. We talked about it in the winners circle panel, where companies had very intentionally, funded their business with an eye to implications on potential exits, both in terms of price and the implications of price. So if I were to map a waterfall of strategic acquirers and where they drop off as prices go up, it's pretty dramatic, right? There's not that many buyers at over $500 million for a lot of companies in the room. Be aware of that. These are robust times. Valuations are looking terrific, in particular for dollars in. But I will tell you that, of all the talk about bubbles, not so much on dollars out. People are pretty disciplined, and so you don't want to get caught in that squeeze. Just because you can raise money doesn't mean you should raise money. And consider the likely acquirers in terms of figuring out, the size and where you're likely to exit. Here's some interesting facts. So, according to 451 Group, of the 906 deals roughly in the digital media world since 2008, 85% of them were under $150 million. Now, a big swath of that, a little over half, were sub $20 million, sort of tech and team type transactions. Knock those out, and you get 450 deals, of which 67%, a full 2/3, were south of $150 million. So remember that you may have the $1 billion exit, and I don't dissuade anybody, you're building a $1 billion exit. We got some interesting news coming up about some sizable transactions. I'm not saying sizable transactions are dead. I'm saying be very conscious as to what your likely exit multiple is. Number 2, understand what factors drive M&A. So I could sit here and tell you it's all about high finance, but I would say it is more about people and politics. And a line I like to use, and I've repeated a lot, is that companies don't buy companies, people buy companies. If you're negotiating with Google or Yahoo, it's one person who decides, who says, I'm going to sponsor this deal. It's one person, a human, with emotions and, yes, logic, but all the other things that come along with us humans. And so bear that in mind. I like to say it's 10% finance, 20% economics or common sense, and 70% psychology. That is not a throwaway. Think about the politics and as you're having these discussions. And the number 1 in the top 10 list is, this is where you were expecting the LUMA plug, but the answer is, I just gave it. So all of those things about how to optimize your exit, not running a process, don't hire a banker, we firmly believe in, we embrace as our business model. There you go. That was the plug, as it turns out. There we go. A little more branding at the end there. Thank you very much. I think we are just a couple minutes late, but we'll get connected now for the afternoon breakouts, and then we'll see you back here at 4 o'clock.